So I think about how many human beings would have been on the planet over years to come, right? And I think, well, where I live, there's say X amount of graveyards, and each graveyard has, say, I don't know, 300 bodies, right? There's 8 billion humans on the planet right now, and there's probably millions and millions and millions of humans in the past. I think to myself, where the hell are all the graveyards and the gravestones for all of these human beings that have been on the planet before us? Like, they literally must be underwater, which then says in years to come, where we are now is going to be underwater. And that is a scary thing because it means that everything that we think is real is just going to disappear underwater. Where do you think all these bodies are?
The bodies have returned to the earth, my man. We all disintegrate into millions of little particles and then reform back into who knows what. We're probably made up of little bits of our ancestors in ways that we don't even imagine.
So it's almost like when a tree breaks down, it becomes mud, which is like then the bark becomes the mud, and the mud becomes clay, and the clay is just whatever. You're saying that over millions of years, our bones will do the same thing a tree does. So we look at say our great grandma's grave, it's just the bone. But over many, many, many years, like when you say cook a chicken stew and you put the bones in it for the juice, that breaks down. Our bones will break down just like logwood, which means that our bones are you can't find these bones. You know, you have the gravestone is made from cement, whatever. But apart from that, the wood would have rotted, which would corpse would have been in if they had coffins back then, and the bones would have just disintegrated. So that makes sense. It just means that it's just so long ago that they've just become part of the earth. That is a good answer.
And the crazy thing is when you think about it, like expanding your vision beyond, 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 how much time it would take for bones to disintegrate and turn into the like micronutrients that feed the soil, that feed a plant that you end up ingesting, that becomes a part of your own protein makeup. That span of time is potentially like the blink of an eye to a divine consciousness, a greater consciousness out there, any type of, whatever you want to attach to that universe creator, source. That span of time is potentially just like a blink of an eye.
It's interesting because if you take like a dog bone or a chicken bone, for example, it seems hard on the outside. But when you take away the white outside, you've got the bone marrow. And that bone marrow, you can literally scrape with a spoon and you can pretty much eat it. So it's like what you think is hard isn't. And if
Mm,
you think about how when you take a twig, for example, you can easily break that down and then all of a sudden there's nothing. So it's so amazing how what we think is a rock or solid literally isn't, you know?
yeah, the everything is constantly changing. Nothing ever holds its form for eternity. It's just always changing.
Where do you think that people are gonna go when water starts to come on land? I don't think it's gonna be a long time. It's gonna be a long time until it happens. But where you can't just like pick up 8 billion humans and houses in their cars and sort of go to the other part of the earth where it's not an ocean yet. But realistically, if we stay here and then say, I don't know, in 1,000 years' time it starts to happen, do we just pick up and go, or should we start to migrate? So we kind of like animals, we migrate when the temperature changes. We don't suddenly go, oh fuck, it's really cold now, and then suddenly migrate. But because everything's stationary.
Well, I would have to say that intelligent folks are not trying to buy up beachfront property these days. Almost no matter where you are, as long as it's an ocean, it's a volatile, water level. So I don't think there's anybody really with like. Obviously, people are still doing it because it's still desirable property. But then the first thing that happens, tsunami, tidal wave, whatever, flooding happens to their well or their high value property, there it goes immediately. So there are waves of intelligence and migratory patterns, that people sort of align to nature and see that nature is coming for them, and they'll move kind of intelligently out of the way. And then there's unintelligence where people are disconnected from nature. They don't see the inevitable, and they reap the consequences, and then they try to react as best they can, which would be end up, okay, let's leave from Malibu or LA or Miami or wherever is just based on waterfront property and just pick up and go to Kansas, or I don't know, you know what I mean, somewhere just super safe. It is going to happen in different ways for different people.
Like when you see that's all, it's like Bitcoin. You don't know when it's going to go up. All
Yep,
you can really
that's
do is
exactly
buy
right.
it and then just hope it might go up. If you buy a house in Malibu, like a £2 million luxurious glass windowed house, it's you're thinking of the nice sunny day and having a barbecue outside, but you do not know when, say, there's going to be a tsunami, and there ultimately will be a tsunami at some point, not necessarily in Malibu, but that's just how it works. So you don't
Totally.
know when it's going to happen. So why would you want to live that close to a rock? And Joe Rogan put on his Instagram the other day of it was in Norway, this house by the ocean. The rock literally drifted apart like two icebergs, and you had like these five houses on this little bit of land drifting out and crumbling. And then the first thing he said was, and that is why you shouldn't live by the earth, because you're just when you understand how like countries are made, it's just that rock breaking down over time and getting further and further away, and yet you're right by the end of the ocean. And you've no idea what's happening underneath, especially when you've got that water breaking down underneath. Um, it is quite scary, but at the same time, it is fascinating to. It's like an adrenaline rush. It's like someone jumping out of a plane. There's always a chance your chute might not go up, but you love the high. It's like I love this high of being by the ocean, seeing the sunset, but my house could suddenly float out middle of the night time, and you wake up like middle of the ocean.
Yeah, he's been talking about that for a minute, and you're so right that there's some kind of parallel between the adrenaline rush and what other people would equate as like, no, this is just my peaceful abode. This is where I find my most peaceful place. Is like, okay, that's fine until it's not fine. So the worst is when there's like all this reparation type funding for folks that built houses or bought up houses in like really dumb places, like in certain states and stuff like that are just super prone to all of the hurricane and all that kind of thing, where beachfront property just gets totaled. And I don't know the intricacies of how it works, but insurance and government funding, there's just so much sort of money that goes fixing up places that really just shouldn't be there in the first place.
It doesn't make sense why anybody would want to build a house or to live in, for example, the middle of North Carolina or wherever it is, where it's just flat land, open space, prone to a storm. It doesn't make sense. Why you'd want to say, put your kids there? You're supposed to protect your kids, and yet you look at the news and look at past patterns, and yet there's storms there. Like, why would you want to live in a place where there's going to be a good chance there's going to be a storm and it's going to wipe out your neighborhood, you're going to lose grandma and all that type of stuff? It doesn't make sense. Again, is it like thinking, oh, it won't be me? Oh, if I buy a house by the ocean, it won't be me. Um, but sadly, it could be you. Do you think it's just people like just thinking they are the lucky ones when it's really them not
Yeah, there's
just
got to be a little
taking it
bit of that.
seriously?
Yeah, I think it's mostly just people following their families. Back in the day, there wasn't social media to say like, "Hey, look at there's other." Like they just thought that that's just what the world was, probably. You know what I mean? That, oh, this is where we are, and this is where my dad grew up, and this is where his dad grew up, and tornadoes or hurricanes. That's just the way of the world, right? And they don't understand that they could literally, you know, take a cart out for like a day and get somewhere way safer, way more abundant, but they just don't even know because that's just what they're following their families. But now as social media time, it's like, okay, yeah, there's better options for you out there right now, and you can see the research. It's not too hard.
Because everything's online, you can see stuff that you wouldn't have been able to see. So, for example, rather than live in, say, a storm prone place for, say, 70 years and then die from a storm, you can see on social media what happened in another part of the country, and you think, shit, I don't want to be there. But at the same time, because of social media, you see all these problems that really aren't your problem, that now becomes your problem because you're focused on it, which creates problems that didn't exist. So, it literally is, it's all 50-50.
Yeah, it's all 50-50 at the end, isn't it?
You know how you've got dreadlocks, right? I don't
Yep.
believe in like products like soap and shampoo and stuff like that and creams and face wash because it's just all man-made fucking profit bollocks, right? And I think to myself, okay, I had long hair and I had 7 colors in my hair and I didn't wash it for like 3 months and I had this massive knot in the back. I think to myself, before man had products and hairbrushes and combs and they just lied on the floor, it would have got knotty, right?
Yeah.
How does and like I had a massive knot. It wasn't like a thin, nice little dreadlock. It was a massive like lump
Yeah, I
of
know
knot.
those. Yeah,
I think to
totally.
myself,
Yeah.
how did man and women back in the day, like how was their hair? Like, obviously it keeps growing from the roots. How does it do they just walk around with a fucking big knot in their hair? Like
Yeah, I've thought
it
of
doesn't
this
make
too, and
sense.
I would say I think they probably did for sure. At least a lot of them, right? Obviously, they had tools to cut with, so I'd imagine they'd try to cut their hair if it became in the way, if there was a reason for them to do it. But if there was no reason to do it, and they actually served maybe a little bit of a purpose as like a pillow or something, you know what I mean? Just some extra protection or warmth. Yeah, I imagine that actually happened a lot more than we probably think.
So you think that they had actual tools to cut their hair? So most people didn't have long hair because how the fuck do I cut this? They literally cut it.
Prior to tools, they wouldn't have been able to cut it for sure, and it would have just grown out. Who knows what those types of Neanderthals look like? But as soon as tools came in, and they saw like a reason to cut their hair, like once there was a reason to, I'm sure that they would have.
I think about like cavemen having like long beards and long hairs. I think like that beard, unless you cut it, like it will just keep growing. And like, how did you walk with a thing just dangling down your waist? How did you eat? Like, how did you kiss your partner? It's like you can't imagine what it would have been like with just all this long hair and a long beard. Or
You
does
know,
it like
think
a
about it like
dog's?
this though, right? Human beings and animals in nature in general, we adapt when we start doing things. So we start cutting, and then our stuff grows faster. It's same with our nails, right? How would we have cut our nails? I mean, we could have like, but all the work and stuff we would have done with rocks and whatever, they still would have been long, but they would have got cut eventually. But like, I think that probably the rate of growth may have increased as things, just like when you cut a fresh lawn, the grass grows back that much faster, right? So it's only actually genetically from the act of cutting it that maybe their hair sort of like went to a certain state and then it just most of the time, for the most part, stayed there. Some people's hair kind of does that, right? It doesn't grow past a certain length.
That is interesting because I didn't cut my hair for 6 years and I'm pretty sure it stopped growing. Like when it reached my belly button, it didn't keep growing. Obviously, when you brush
That's
your
right.
hair and you wash it, hair does snap and come out, but it didn't. It just got a point where it just didn't
Yep.
grow anymore. So
Yep.
maybe when your body realizes that you don't need this, it kind of just shuts down the gene side of it and it stops growing. I mean, this is obviously stuff that we don't really know because we're always cutting it. We never have it long enough to
True.
know. But I've always thought, even our nails, as you said, when animals walk along the floor, it files their nails, so they don't
Yeah.
have long nails. And as man climbing trees or whatever, our nails are short. And you see like these Guinness World Records people where they've got long, massive
And it
past the nails.
curls
I'm
and yeah,
thinking,
totally.
would everyone have that if we didn't
I know.
cut our
Yeah.
nails? Like, what the hell? Like the nail file only came into play, I don't know, say 100 years ago, whatever.
Yeah.
Would
Yeah.
everyone be like that? And it's like,
No.
no. And then there's reasons why, because your body, as you said, it adapts to whether you need it or not. It's interesting to think about when we cut our beard, it does grow more, and cut the grass, and it's like when you prune back a rose bush, it
Exactly.
grows more.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a question.
Shoot.
Do you think that, for example, we're speaking about your body will remember when it's used something, right? If, for example, we look at our phones all the time, we're looking down all the time, right? People say that we had a third eye. Obviously, we have the pineal gland, but there was an actual eye, right?
Hmm.
Because we're looking down all the time, our body's going to adapt. Are we going to somehow grow a third eye where one eye can look down and the other two eyes can look forward? If, for example, we stop using our tailbone because we're not in the jungle anymore, so we don't need three legs to swing, over time, will we grow a third eye just like we stop growing a tailbone?
The third eye going just straight down, and then the other two going up to see where we're actually walking. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because think
Or
about
maybe the
even like
third eye to go to see where we're walking, and both of our eyes looking at our phone.
either
Which way
or,
would look weirder? I don't know.
either or, because look, I was looking at a deer, right? Obviously, deers are on all fours, but I was on a walk the other day and I saw a deer on its two back legs,
Yeah.
reaching up to a branch, and that's the first time I'd ever seen it and imagined how an ape became a human, where it was like I can't reach that berry, and it reached up, and then it just stayed like that, where it just started to walk on all twos because it was just, I don't know, easier. And I'd never seen a deer do that, and I thought, wow, if that deer was essentially an ape, and then an ape reached up to get that fruit, then eventually over time that deer's going to be like that. And my dad always says we are going to grow a third eye, one to watch where we're driving and one looking at our phone. Um, the same as
No,
like
no,
we're
no.
always
I have the
crouching
answer to this
down.
one.
Um,
There's no way what's going to happen first is our phone, our technology is all just going to plug into our brainstem and we'll just see it in front of us and we'll have self-driving cars. We won't need a third eye because we'll be mech humans, you know what I mean? Before that we'd actually biology would take so many million years to grow an entire other eye, I think.
do you think at some point a phone like an iPhone is going to be see-through? For example, we're always walking and on our phone, but at some point, like kind of like the Matrix screen where you see like a fight, like there's goggles, AI things where you can
Yeah.
see your actual room, but then you can see fucking Pikachu there, right? Like a Pokemon Go
Yeah.
app, right?
Yeah.
Do you reckon phones are going to be see-through where you can literally hold it in front of you, see on the screen, but also see through? Like, surely there has to be like a Tesla. You've got the screen with the sat nav in where you can
Right.
see the road and where
Similar
you're
type
going. So it'd
thing.
be like
Yeah.
McDonald's to the left or
Yeah.
whatever to the right.
Yeah, no, that's I mean the biggest thing was Google Glass. I don't know what happened to that. I don't I was thinking about that the other day. Like what happened to that cool video where it was like everything was like an iPhone, but it was on your glasses and you could literally just talk to it and you didn't even have to touch it or maybe you did, but it was very minimal. And then like that seemed like oh the future's here and then it disappeared. Like no one had Google Glass and like it didn't become a thing.
Like Stephen Hawkins, when he used to communicate, he did
Yeah.
that via eye twitches or something like that.
Is
So
that what it was? Yeah, I can't remember. That's crazy. That's really
he
impressive.
doesn't do it. I don't think he did it by like like looking. He did it by an eye twitch somehow. So we emit energy from our eyeball or our retina, whatever.
Yeah.
You'll be able to look at the glasses and look exactly where that bit is on that glass screen, and it will pick up the electromagnetic wave from your eye, and then that will signal something on the glasses. Like everything comes back around. Google Glasses is essentially the AI thing. So you've got the augmented reality, and then you've got the other thing, where you're actually in like a simulation thing. You know the difference?
There's a augmented reality where it's showing you things that like are supposed to be a part of your actual world, and then there's virtual reality where it like
Yes,
just
yes, yes, yes,
completely takes
yes.
you to a different thing.
Virtual reality is the fake world, but the AI is
Yes.
it takes what's here and puts it in. Um,
AR,
that
yeah, AR, yeah. Yeah, you're right.
yeah, Tesla have to do that on their
Mm,
screen. Like
mm.
it's like if it's going to be self-driving anyway, like it just has to happen like that. Their whole screen will be kind of you'll have for example on your iPhone you've got satellite view on the maps and then you've got the like the 3D view like the block view then you've got just birds 2D view in your screen on the car you'll have like you can choose your kind of view 3D view it's all like virtual like blocks
Yeah.
and then you'll have like the actual view but it will say McDonald's how many car parking spaces 4 cheeseburgers left in Burger King John's over there go and say hi to John like Snapchat location thing.
So you know what the next level of this would be? Because you're talking about like a map screen coming up that doesn't interact with what the actual road is. But let's say it's like there's an arrow that's coming in. It's so far in the distance, but it's this big green arrow that's like moving and saying McDonald's right here. And then it gets bigger and closer to you
Yes,
as you
exactly
get
what I'm
closer to
saying.
that's AR. That's like
Yeah.
augmented reality. Yes.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay, cool.
that that is the future.
Yeah, that totally
Like
is.
you look on Snapchat and it says, like Dan's in the pub, Dan's in McDonald's. Well, that arrow will get closer and closer and closer, and it'll be like, and John will get a notification saying that Dan's in the car on the way.
Yeah.
Um, it is crazy though because like I also think that we're going to become apes again because we're like our posture is shit. We're sitting in chairs all the time. We're looking down on our phones. Our spine has gone like from curved on all fours to up, going back down again. And especially with like everything being robotic and AI, like that's what dementia is, where our brains aren't doing anything. If your wife says, you're forgetting your things, and she doesn't trust that you're going to remember to put the kids' stuff in the car or whatever, she'll do it for you. And your
Hmm.
brain won't need to do anything because another person's leading. And what
Hmm.
happens then is that your brain doesn't do anything, it's not stimulating. The wife ends up taking control, and your brain's dead. You just
Mm.
wait for her to say, right, we're going now. She's got the kids in the car, and then you get dementia at, say, 50. And then the kids start doing things for you. And I believe that, and no, I don't believe any disease is really real. I believe that dementia and Alzheimer's, it's created by man. If you do things to somebody, their brain doesn't have to do it themselves.
Yep, that makes sense.
And there's a danger with kids and the other half doing things for the partner if they say, oh, you forgot your glasses, oh, I'm losing my marbles. That's not a joke. Don't say you're losing your marbles, because if you believe that, things, dementia exists, you're going to start thinking, oh, I better go check my brain checked out. And then you go to the doctor and he says, yes, your brain is a little bit weak. That's called dementia. When really it's just your brain's not done anything because
Yeah,
your
it's
wife's done
like
it for you.
your muscles
Same
get
with
weak when you don't
glasses.
work out. That's what you're
Yeah, you go
saying.
to the doctor, you
Same
go to
thing.
the opticians, and they say, yeah, you can't read that board, you need glasses. Well, they don't say, well, I've been playing Xbox all night the night before, and my eyes are fucking drained, and I've been staring at a computer. They say, oh yeah, you can't read the Q and the P and the J. Here's some glasses, and then your brain, your eye muscle starts to weaken because it's got the lens doing the work for you, and it's like, holy shit, all this, we're gonna just go back to an ape, a dumb ape.
Yeah, I mean, there's a strong argument there for sure. There's obviously there's going to be splintering, I'd imagine, right? Some people that embrace, like right now, it's the splintering between people who are like, technology is bad. We need to return to our roots and go back to farming and go back to, learn permaculture and just buy land and like, completely go off grid, right? And then there's the splintering of people who are like, no, technology is good. It's good for business. It's good for humanity. It makes everything more streamlined and convenient. And neither is the complete picture, I would say. I would say they both have merit. Obviously, there's a strong, strong case towards just going back to nature and really unplugging from everything. But what was I going with this? Is like there's going to be splintering in all different directions, right? From both levels of extreme. And that's, yeah, I'm forgetting where this was coming from. What?
Well, I think what we're trying to say is that there's going to be countries amongst countries. There's going to be governments and governments beneath them. It's not
Yeah.
just going to be like one law, one, one this, one that.
Yeah.
Technology, everyone needs to. It's going to be like, well, there's too many fucking humans on the planet. There's too many systems. You need to kind of just divide and create your own, almost like Palestine,
Yes.
India, California, America. It's
Yes.
just, if you look back in time, that's always been like that. India, Pakistan. It's just too many people, and it's like China and Hong Kong. It's just like a country dividing. There's going to
Mhm.
be like a technology where everyone's got a chip in their brain and they can all communicate, and then there's going to be us on an island. Like, man, I use telepathy. That cost me nothing. Yet you pay for this stupid thing Elon Musk made to do the same thing. Like, you know.
Right. Right. Yeah. Wow. This is a big mind expander for sure. I think that there's certain countries that are going to be like the, hey, if you believe in this and this and this, then our borders are open for you. I think like Costa Rica is kind of like being that one right now. That's like, you know what, expats, y'all are cool. Like, come on in, like, do your big, create your new planet down here, and we'll take your money. That's fine. You know what I mean? And that's why Costa Rica is very flourishing economically to a certain extent. And then there's going to be other ones that yeah, there's going to be certain countries that will open up because they see the opportunity economically. I don't know like how that's going to really come out. And then when it comes down to people like not being able to physically relocate, that's when you're going to get things like happening, like revolutions like in Hong Kong right now, and revolutions everywhere because people will fight for their home.
You know how you've got, like, say, awoke people like us kind of put randomly around the world, and the only way to really meet up is online. And then you've got, say, a village full of vegans who can just like go to the next village. When you go to another country, you need a visa, a work visa, right? And you have to come back unless you're a resident. But as you're saying, if we are kind of gaining access to all of these other tribes and mindsets around the world, and we want to be amongst these people more and more and more, at what point is there going to be like a, say, a tribe visa where you can go to a country, don't have to work, so you don't need to keep renewing your visa, You don't sacrifice your own residency for your own country because your family's there for Christmas and you want to come home. At what point is there going to be like a dual visa where you can go to, say, Bali, live there for as long as you want with your tri Bali braided hair nose ring people, right? And if you want to go to, say, Mexico with all the vegans are, it's not like you need to renew your visa for work and you don't have to sacrifice your own citizenship because it's
Yeah.
like people are seeking for this harmony with people and it's like you got to choose this or that and it's like no, it's not black or white, it's grey, and then there's multiple levels of grey. It's like you, in order to maintain peace, you've got to give people more freedom, and then the government's like, you need to do this or that. Eventually it's going to be like, no, we're the people, you're working for us, we want this. And then other countries, as you said, will open themselves up to specific tribe people.
Mm.
um is that realistically going to happen, and will it happen in our lifetime?
I think it's already happening to a certain extent. And will it become the bigger vision of it in our lifetime? A part of me, like, I really want to say yes, but part of me thinks like there's going to be more collapse than it becoming, like a full reality, because that there's such strong holds on the citizenship system, um, and all this kind of stuff that they've, like I said, certain countries are, it's like way easier to immigrate to. So that's like them showing the world, like, hey, like you can come here and find this sanctuary. Um, but in terms of a global government consciousness, uh, that's it's a pretty long way away. I think. I don't know if that's our lifetimes.
So obviously, like, a country is a small tribe. There was one leader, and then there was, say, I don't know, 10 followers, and you could manage them, right? Now there's like one leader and billions of people. I don't think that you can necessarily write laws to keep people happy. I also don't think that you can just keep feeding people a bone. So let's say any movement, you write a new law. Every time, say, McDonald's doesn't sell vegan food, you sell vegan stuff. Then you got the spaghetti movement saying, why can't McDonald's sell spaghetti? And then McDonald's do spaghetti. You can't just kind of shut people up by giving them what they want, because people start to demand and feel like they get what they want when they cheap up, and that's dangerous because it's not realistic that when you want something you get it. And at the same time, if you don't give people what they want, they will create havoc until they get it. So it's like you can't win. So I
Mm.
think moving forward, the only way you can go back to civilization in peace is where you divide off. It's the only way. You cannot keep writing laws. You can't throw money at it. You can't just give them what they want, because then other people think, okay, well, if they cheaped up, they got what they want, I'm going to do it. And if and if you don't do it to that specific group, you're racist, you're sexist, and so now everyone cheaps up, and it's like government lose control. And at the end of the day, one person can't manage lots of people. You look at a business, a fucking one CEO can't manage 2,000 people in a business, let alone millions of people. I think moving forward, you will get, for example, California becoming their own country
Hmm.
amongst America, and places like, for example, I'm in the UK. There's different parts of the UK, parts that are predominantly white, predominantly black, predominantly religious, predominantly this, whatever. It's not just one country, one belief system, praise the Queen, and look after your parents. We are now having access to all these belief systems where in one country you're going to have like a state or a city where you're majority black, majority Republican, majority vegan, majority don't cut your hair and have a farm and grow crops, majority technology. I think that is the only way you can really gain. You can go back to where we've come from, which is just peace and harmony. You can't just. What do you think? Do you think that is the only way?
Back into tribe mentality, like you're saying, but not
Otherwise, we're just going to fight
necessarily.
each other and kill each other, and then
Yeah.
there's just going to be too many people. We're just going to fight because the police are going to be outnumbered. Look at the Black Lives Movement, for example. The police are
Mm.
going to be outnumbered. What are you going to do? Send in the army? Like, well, you can't do that because, and so now it's like they have to step down, and then they swarm Washington or whatever. And now what do you do? Well, the only
Mm.
reason why we have stability is because of the police, which is the majority, because of weapons. But then you can't just shoot everyone because fucking hell's going to grow loose. So what do you do?
Yeah, it's the possibilities are really up in the air right now. It's not clear what the extent of willingness on either side is to create this level of chaos. Um, I see a lot of hope out there, but there's also signals that are pretty terrifying. So, in terms of actually organizing tribe mentality, that's something I've haven't really explored in my mind. Like you're saying, breaking up the boroughs in cities and breaking up states and countries and breaking up, it sounds pretty positive because then you're just, I mean, negative in that like you're only going to be surrounded by people that you feel like, that don't like really extend your own sense of thinking. I think it's really valuable to really grow compassion by thinking on all sides, as opposed to just only being surrounded by your tribe and therefore everybody else is lunatics and like how could they possibly be, vegans, or how could they possibly be paleo? Like that's it. Just, it creates this like lower consciousness of humanity. But uh, of course, in terms of just raw peace, I can see that proposition being something that could. I don't know how we would transition there, though. That's pretty insane.
So on what you said about it's not good being amongst people who believe the same as you because you start to like reinforce your own belief and it seems to be
Yes.
real, and then other people question you and it's like you're absolutely wrong. But at the same time, if you think about, say, tribe mentality, you've got cavemen all in the cave. They know that when the sun comes up, they hunt and then they light the fire and then they go to bed. So they don't know any different. A cow in a field looks at its mate next door, also in a field. They're eating grass. So it's almost like you only know there's an alternative because you know there's an alternative. Let's say a plane took you to China and you see this 5D machine, and then you go back to, say, Norway, where there's a population of, say, 30,000 people. They're like, fucking hell, have you seen that 5D thing? And they've only got a radio. So it's like what you're exposed to, you now become aware of. But if you weren't exposed to it, you wouldn't know it exists. So yeah, as a wise person, I want to broaden my knowledge. But that's only because I want to be amongst knowledgeable people to gain knowledge,
Yes.
to teach knowledge. But if I just didn't know any of this existed, I'll just be a monk on a rock and I would no clue about movements and what's going on in the city, and I wouldn't have a clue. Um, but then it does come down to peace, and it's like you look at all these countries around the world, and they're going to the government for answers, and there is no answer. The government can't provide the answer. The answer is go the other way and forget what you want to happen. Just literally go and dig a hole and be peaceful. And honestly, I think that is the only way where people just realize that they get so angry with, say, governments, not because it's their fault, just because that's just the way it is. They get so angry with there's always a cause. They think, do you know what? Fuck this. Government never do anything anyway. Fuck the world. I'm just going to be happy. And then when people go inwards and they go the other way, they just do what makes them feel good. And then say they're small people around them, they confide in each other's thoughts. Like, do you know what? Fuck the government. Let's just go and smoke a joint in the park. Let's just cook a nice steak on the barbecue. And then everyone will be saying the same thing. Yeah, let's just do this. Let's just do that. And they really start to appreciate their friend and their like that three people on the same page. Yes, when you go into the mash, you feel empowered and everyone's thinking the same, but you realize it's not going to change. And you become so peaceful through letting go of this anger that you don't care anymore. You don't care about movements. You just feel so peaceful, not giving a shit for the first time. It's almost like not going on your phone for 3 days. If you can get to that point, you realize how peaceful your mind is, how your eyes aren't straining, how your brain is just not thinking about everything. You realize, holy shit, this feels great. And then you just don't feel the need to look at your phone. But I think that you can't tell yourself, don't go on your phone, stop watching porn. You have to get there through thinking that thing is there, what you're looking for, and you keep going back and you're convinced you're going to get this thing, and you convince, and then you realized you can't be told it's not there. You have to like go down that path until you realize my dad told me it wasn't here. Everyone told me it wasn't here. I've done this 4 or 5 times now and it isn't here. Maybe I'm gonna have to accept the fact that this thing I'm looking for isn't here. And then you go back, and then that distance between going back is what you need to have that time apart to realize, fuck, what I'm looking for isn't there.
Yeah, I hear everything you're saying, and I fully agree. That comes with a lot of experience to be able to sort of draw those parallels and those conclusions. Um, the way that we get to these types of realizations is through getting messy, through trying and error, trial and error, and getting our feet dirty along the way. So who knows how many other people are going to come through that, sort of realization that you just went through. But that definitely makes sense to me.
Like if you go back in time, you look at wars and flus, right? That killed millions and millions of people. You look at when trees are close together, right? You plant loads of trees, or there's acorns in it. A tree drops loads of acorns. Lots of small shoots start to grow, and then over time, the strong ones that sort of got their first grip in the ground first grow, and they take the nutrients of the other trees.
Yeah.
So it's interesting when you look on Google Maps. You look at trees, crop circles, and they're all exactly the same distance apart. You go to a beach, okay, Malibu Beach. People are always kind of the same distance apart, and I don't mean like social distancing. I just mean I want a certain amount of space. You look at picnics on fields. People are always a certain distance apart, and you see that the strong tree survives and all the weak trees just die off, and then it's the same cycle again. Yes, medicine is good. If your nan's got a disease, medicine saves her. That's fantastic. You could argue the fact that it's because it had a shitty diet and didn't get enough sleep, and she was angry that created that disease.
Yeah.
But that's besides the point. And so you think, wow, man is doing all this great stuff to solve a problem man created. But when you think about how wars killed people off and kept that distance between the trees, which allowed trees to grow, and all the flus back in the day and diseases kept like civilization balanced. That is why it's not balanced, because we're trying to keep every human being alive.
Yep.
Like,
That's exactly
it's
right.
not how life works. It's almost
No,
like
it's
we're
not.
all playing God. We're trying to keep every human being alive, and you look to a tree and it dies in the summer, it dies in the winter. And so the only thing is trying to stay alive forever, and nothing around us stays alive. Like, you just look at our dog, 20 years if he's lucky.
Oh yeah, I don't think very many dogs go that far. The little ones maybe, but yeah, no, you're right. This is like where the moral humanity, the moral codes of humanity crosses the lines of that nature, the laws of nature has put before us that are pretty clear when you look at it objectively, as opposed to emotionally about your grandma, about your humanity and stuff like that. So uh, who are the governing bodies that are going to say no? We need to refer to nature for these codes as opposed to just what we think is right for the sake of making sure everybody is happy or something, right? That everybody gets to save their grandma.
For example, the coronavirus, let's just say it takes a year to
Mm,
create a vaccine, and then it takes, say, 5 years to vaccine every 8 billion humans, right? Well, before you've even, like, say, created a flu, a jab, there's going to be something else that comes along, right? And it's almost like man is not going to be able to catch up. It's going to destroy companies, destroy our life as we see. We can't get on a plane to Bali. We
mm,
can't even go to the shop to get food. And then
mm.
and there's not going to be enough masks. There's not going to be government can't do shit. There's going to be no money, not enough nurses. I do think that nature always has a way of
It
balancing
does.
itself out. You can't
Yep.
expect to go on a tube underground next to people and not
Yeah.
catch it. I
Mm.
think that right now is a pivotal point for people to accept the fact that we are going to be losing control. For example, let's say
Yes.
1 million people dying every year, and I say 1 billion being born.
Mm.
It's going to become a point, and I think in the next 5 years, something will happen where it will wipe out a large amount of people.
Mm.
And this is why it's so important that if you don't want to be in that majority, you eat well, you sleep well, you let go of pain and angry stuff, you exercise, because as with the virus, if you have a weak immune through all these factors, you've got no chance. If you've got a strong immune, you win. And it's
Yep.
not the virus that's killing people, it's people's inability to fight off foreign pathogens.
Mm.
Um, and with the way everything is, there's gonna be something soon. It might be a flu. I don't know what it will be. It could be a mosquito bite, which I suppose is technically a flu, but something will happen where you can't really stop it. And I mean, if there wasn't flus and there wasn't countries blocking flights, you could see how this flu would have just wiped out millions of the
Mm.
weak-minded people. Is that good? Well, in terms of a species, yes. But if it's your nan involved, it's where's the fucking government when they need them? You killed my nan. I'm going to sue you because you said social distancing when it was too late. And then so
You're so
it's a
right.
mixture of both. There's literally no
Hmm.
wrong or right.
Yeah, I know. I've been hearing all of and feeling a lot of what you're saying, and it's very true. You know, like we have to like recognize that we're a part of a time that's over capacity. So it doesn't the family relations, the emotional attachments that we have, at the end of the day, they again are a part of a system that is going against the laws of nature. So nature is going to recorrect itself. Everything does at the end of the day. So you could be a part of the the lucky majority, or you could be a part of the unlucky minority. And the earlier that I can imagine for someone, to detach from, like you're saying, like just focus on what is within your control, which is, increasing your immune system and doing the right actions to be able to do that. And then detaching from this, the emotional strains of the unpredictability of it, is probably the healthiest thing to do. And it will be, individually, on an individual basis, you'll be able to lead the happiest life while this is happening, this recorrection, which is scary, but it just is what it is. You can't deny it.
I used to eat really, really, really bad. I used to have just fast food, right? Sausage rolls, things high in acid and just fats and oils. And I used to feel sick like 60% of my whole life,
Mm,
right? And when you're growing up and everyone's eating the same thing for lunch and you just see it on adverts and your parents cook you this, you just eat it because it's there. I changed my diet to a keto diet, which is pretty much a
mm-hmm.
vegan diet, right? It's just natural food, so nuts and olives and salmon and egg. I haven't felt sick since. And then I
Yes.
have a curry, I have an Indian, I have a biryani, strong in spices. I fast every night, and I was on a 16-hour fast as usual. I had leftovers in the morning. The first thing I ate was a chicken biryani, and I was puking up 3, 4 hours later because my stomach acids were like, what the fuck is all this? Like, you've gone from fasting, eating all this natural food with no salt and no sugar, to eating the complete opposite, and that my stomach acids built up so much that I just had to puke it out. And I think to myself, people are just eating everything apart from natural food. They're eating like sandwiches full of salts and preservatives, KFC, chicken, and pizza, grilled cheese. I'm thinking, holy shit. I felt so bad just having said biryani that time in the morning. People must feel so bad all the time that they don't even know what it feels like to feel good. And it's not
Yeah.
about vegan save the animals. It's about just giving your body what it should be eating. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like that is why people get ill, have disease. That's why you're fat, and that's why you end up dying because no thing can live or survive eating fat. I mean, not to
Mm-hmm.
mention being on the toilet all the time. I mean, Christ, I have some bread for the first time, and I'm like shitting 3 times a day, and I stick to my nuts to shit twice. I just think that it's overwhelming when you have all this knowledge and you could pretty much save the world, and you realize actually you can't save the world because that's the issue. Everyone's trying to save the world, and it's it's overwhelming. Like you want to help people, and you realize you can't. You literally can't. You can only literally save grandma by teaching her to get enough sleep and eat healthy, so her immune becomes strong and make it.
Even grandma set in her ways sometimes. You know what I mean? Like she might say, "Oh yeah, I want to do all that," and then it's outside of she's an old dog at that point. Love her. Uh,
grandma's been grandma's been eating canned spam for the last 80 years, full of salt. Like my grandparents used to just like have salt on every single meal and then have a heart
yeah,
attack
yeah,
from salt. So
yeah,
like
yeah.
grandma's not changing anytime soon.
That's so funny. There's lots of people with different ideas on diets, and of course, the health. Even if you want to just say like saving the animals versus eating the animals, okay, sure, but the health of the animal through its lifetime vastly changes the structure of its what you're putting in your body. So there's all kinds of considerations, and it's pretty simple, like you're saying. It's just natural foods, right? whichever direction you want to go, whether it's keto or paleo or vegan or whatever, thing is, like those are tend to be good options as long as it's natural along the way. So yeah, it's no surprise to me that you're feeling awesome on, you laying the boundaries in your diet that you are. And I have felt the same way, that I used to eat really, really terribly and have a lot of, stomach and issues and stuff like that. And now I don't really, go through that stuff really at all.
What I find amazing, it's almost like people don't want to eat chicken stuff, so they go vegetarian. And then have you heard of a company called Corn? Right, a company ends up creating a kind of a meat-free chicken nugget, right? So it
Yeah.
tastes really nice. It tastes like a chicken nugget, and it does. I had 2 minutes ago. It tastes like a chicken nugget, right? And I'm like, God knows what's in that thing to make it taste like chicken. So again, it's like you suddenly start eating nice, healthy vegetable food, and yet your ego and can't help but have bad food. So you're like, oh well, this is a chicken nugget. There's no meat in it. It's really good. It's like you couldn't just eat that lettuce leaf and that nice olive. You had to go back to having vegetable in a chicken nugget. And oh well, it's meat free. And it's like you're doing the opposite. It's got shit. It's fucking man made. Okay, that's the whole point. It's man made. Just eat natural. Like companies can't help but kind of see a trend and then think, oh, people are eating chocolate olives. I'll make a chocolate olive.
Hmm.
It,
Yeah, chocolate olives. I don't know if that
just
sounds
get first what
good.
that came to my head.
Yeah, no, yeah, the people. I mean, the biggest example is like you're saying, maybe not the chicken nuggets one, but um, the burgers, the Impossible burgers, right, or whatever they're called. And I honestly don't. I've heard both sides of it. I honestly would probably think that it's yeah, like all the processed soy and processed blah 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 to make it taste awesome, but then sort of bring people away from that natural sense for sure. We just have to redevelop our palates, like you're saying. Like if you have a palate for the junk food kind of stuff, it's going to take time. And there's actually, I remember there was a chart that was like, if you're craving salt, then you could offset that with this, and it was like herbs and nuts and like uh just things that sort of like satiated the brain when it's going off saying like, oh, I want that like salty chip, or I want that sweet sugary cake or something like that. Then there's actually I don't know if it was like a hormone kind of transfer, or something chemically, but there was actually foods that can, so if you're someone that struggles hard with like sweet tooth, or salty savory, then you can actually look up what are the things that you can offset that with, that are totally natural.
Yeah, I remember when I suddenly started to change my diet. It's like watching porn. If you're used to watching porn every night, your brain's gonna ping out a thought, and then it needs that reward. At what
Yes.
point do you starve that thought? Where
Hmm.
it's like, hang on, where's my chicken nuggets with all that salt? And then your body starts to forget that feeling, and then it becomes easier not to watch porn, not to have a chicken nugget full of salt, and then you are able to have a nut. But yeah, you're right. It does take time. It's not. It's not hard. It's not easy.
It's not easy. Yeah, one of the best books about this topic is called Atomic Habits, by, is it James Clear? That's a really good one for these, like, how can we make incremental improvements in our habits so that we can get that first bit of momentum and clock those small wins. Even his example is like, commit to just the first 2 minutes of something, whether it's like you want to build a meditation practice, or you want to be going to the gym, it's 5 a.m. or whatever your thing is. uh, and basically all you have to do is just the first 2 minutes. Just tell yourself, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to put on my running shoes, or all I'm going to do is just sit down for the first 30 seconds. And then once you're there, you're like, oh, well, this is fine. I can just continue on for the rest of the 5 minutes. But if you tell yourself, I'm going to do an hour and a half in the gym, and then you wake up and you feel like crap, and you're like, an hour and a half? No way. I might as well just bail, right? Same thing with meditation or whatever food, habit change you're trying to do. But it's habits. Like, that's what the book is really profound in, like, showing you, is that, like, oh my God, like my entire being is just a composite of all these like minuscule habits that I have that build this sense of character, and that I have these weaknesses here, and that's my downfall in a lot of different areas. I have these strengths here, that's my strength in a lot of different areas. So it's it's a fractal way of looking at how we behave, right? It's just sequences of habits.
What was the last thing you thought about when you were on the toilet?
I'm trying to remember when I was last. I was
Because you got
probably
such a good diet that you shit every 3 days with your lettuce diet.
no, yeah, no, it's daily for me. Oh man, it was probably something about my Instagram because that tends to be like the thing that I think about on my downtime is just, yeah, how am I gonna come out further, you know what I mean, and really just show my energy, whether it's in the type of content I create or the people that I network with. It's just it takes up my mind, that's for sure.
How have you managed to get your Instagram to 30,000 and how long has it taken?
Yeah, it took a long time. I think I started in 2014,
Oh
and
shit.
yeah, so it's definitely not a new thing. Um,
Ah,
I have been blessed to have networked with some really incredible people. I think that the biggest growths that spurts that I've had have been when I've been connecting with some of my brothers and sisters in like certain areas or certain things. Like I went on tour with Mike Love, who is an incredible musician based out of Hawaii. We went all the way from Texas up to uh, the Midwest, and then down to Florida, and that was in 2018. Before that, I'd connected with a brother named Vishuddha Das, who was actually at that point going by Koi Fresco, and my shout out to him and my brother Moonhawk, who introduced us Potential Bliss. I just have been lucky to have a few friends who have had their own really big accounts, and I don't know, just long-term consistency, right? Like when it was really easy to go viral at the beginning, I was just putting out covers like all the time, and it was like very like nonchalant, you know what I mean? Like people put a lot of effort in these days on their Instagram, and for me it was just like I'm just gonna put a post out like I don't know, a few times, like every couple days or something like that, and it would just go viral.
going back to the sitting on the toilet thing, what I was getting at is what thing do you think about, like a deep thought that's just on your mind? What, like something really powerful that you think about? That's what I was getting at. It's just most of the time you take a poo and you think about something like, wonder if there's actually an alien out there. And you look down and you're like, there's one there.
Yeah, these profound thoughts. I don't write them down probably as much as I have them. Uh, I wish I could fill this space with something that was like perfect for this, but I'm not in the practice of recording these moments. If you give me a minute, I might be able to get it, but if I'll answer this by the end.
When I first started to meditate, obviously thoughts come into your head, and if you think about them, then you keep thinking of more. But as you said, that 2 minutes before putting your trainers on to go on a run type of thing, if you starve your brain of that initial thing, it changes the brain thing. And I remember sitting on the toilet and reading all the shampoo bottles, right? I remember every time I got a thought into my head, I would read the shampoo bottles, like the back of it, like all these chemicals, which I had no fucking clue what they were. But because they were so long and I couldn't say them, it took me like 2 minutes to read them, and it was like X like glucosely in nine to the point where that thought I had disappeared. And I
Mm,
realized by starving that thought, allowed my brain that 2 minutes of peace which you wouldn't have otherwise had. Now that when I go to bed, I listen to stuff on YouTube because the brain that works stuff out is a different part to say listening. So I can listen to YouTube stuff and still get a quality amount of sleep. So when I
mm,
would read the bottles or the stuff on the bottles, it's a different part of the brain to what will be stimulated if I was thinking. But
hmm.
because you can only do one thing at one time, my brain was focused on reading and not thinking. And so I kept doing that. And eventually, I remember just having no thoughts and I was reading through all the bottles. I was reading like that one, and then that one, and then that one. And then all of a sudden, I've gone like 10 minutes without thinking. And believe it or not, when I used to read books, I used to read the first sentence, something would trigger off in my head, and I'd have to think about it. And then that thought would go to another thought, which would go to another thought, and I wouldn't even read the book.
Yeah,
I wouldn't even finish a sentence. And I've never
that
read a
happens
book
to
in
me
my
still for
life.
sure.
I've
Yeah.
never read a book in my life because I never had the attention span to
Wow.
finish the sentence and know where
Yeah.
it's going. And then
Huh.
I realized if I listen to stuff, I can remember the whole 2 hour thing word for
I'm
word when I
kind of the
can't
same way
read
for
shit.
sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel you. Because the thing about listening is that it's going to keep going. You don't have control over it, where you have to read the next sentence and actually internalize it in order for the process to continue. So that's, you could get much more in flow state of when you're listening. For me, anyway, that's how I agree. That's really cool. Wow, I didn't think about the whole fact that like when you read something, it's not engaging the same space as your brain as what thinking would, and therefore you're relaxing the thinking portion of your brain. Wow,
Yes, yes,
really
yes,
interesting.
yes, yes. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's something so crazy and so simple, but it's so true. If you
Hmm.
if you distract yourself, I remember doing this because I used to always think that if I think about this thing, it'll be the last thought. And I think
Hmm.
about that one. It's like cigarette. One more fag, then I'll quit. One more fag, then I'll quit. One more, and I realized it doesn't ever end.
Hmm.
And so by reading the bottles, allowed me to not think. And I'm no joke, I couldn't remember the stuff that I was thinking about. And I trusted the process that because thoughts don't end, if I just don't think about that thought and I distract myself, I will forget it to the point where I won't have what was I thinking about to think about it because I just can't remember. And so it's almost like, oh, what was I thinking about? People think, what was that person's name? And they sit all day trying to think about that person's name that they saw. What a waste of energy. What a waste of time. You're going to go your whole life seeing people, not knowing who the fuck they were. It doesn't matter. And so it's like we have no control over our brain, that thinking part. And it's tiring trying to think like, what was that person's name? Oh, where's he from? I should like people like they literally they punish themselves by oh, what's that fucking name? So useless.
Totally. Yes. Yes, I've done that for sure. Yeah, it comes down to the patterns that we learn from our friends and parents and stuff like that. This is the type of talk that we hear others say to themselves, and then we feel like that's what we need to do in order to be an adult or to be, responsible or to be whatever, right? So, yeah, man, this is some really like life shifting stuff because we're talking about the bare minimum of our just internal communication patterns, and that obviously creates massive, massive repercussions in the rest of our experience of life in general. So this stuff is not to be sort of laughed about. It's it's really important.
I always have a coffee with my meal, and because I always apply action to my thought immediately, right? When I don't apply action immediately, I forget. Because I've got
Yes.
into a pattern now where when I think about it, my brain expects me to do it. So if I don't do it, my brain doesn't know the difference. So I always have a coffee, as I said. I made a coffee today. I believed I made a coffee today, but that was yesterday, right? So I remember thinking to myself today, shit, where did I leave my coffee? I've not drunk it. I looked around the house. I couldn't find it because I
Hmm.
never made it because I thought about it and because I didn't do it immediately for whatever reason, I did something else. My brain thinks I've already done it. And then my mum came in the kitchen. She says, "You're losing it." And I'm like, listen, I'm not losing it. My brain is so used to thinking and doing and manifesting immediately that it doesn't know the difference between what's real and what isn't real, right? If you do not do something there and then, you will forget. That is not dementia. The reason why people say forget their car keys is because they're thinking about something else in that
Yep.
moment and they're
Yep.
not present. So if dementia is, oh, I put my socks in the fridge, that's not fucking dementia. That's not forgetting. You just were thinking about something else. You went to the fridge to get, say, milk out for the tea, but you're thinking about fucking putting socks in the wash bin. So you're confusing your thoughts. So
Mm.
I have done that, but does that mean I've got dementia? No. So if that person's doing that at say 60, he's saying he's got dementia. If he doesn't have an answer for why he hasn't got it, he's just going to take your word. And as I
Yep.
said, you go to the doctor and then you go down that cycle, then
And
your
then everyone
parents
starts
take
helping
control, your
you, and
kids start to
then
do
you
things
just,
for you,
yeah,
your brain
totally.
weakens and you die.
Yep. Yep. Fascinating.
Right, plug anything you want to plug.
Jungle Man Sam, for those who who haven't figured it out, I got music on Spotify. I got videos on YouTube. I have Instagram and Facebook, so come and connect. I got lots for you on my channels.
Right, I'm going to stop recording, wait there, and I'll say goodbye.